This week on Capitol Report.
I will not be running for mayor of the city of New Britain in 2025.
New Britain Mayor Erin Stewart bails on running for a 7th term in office.
Why now? What are you doing?
Does she have her eyes on a bigger prize?
I'm happy to take any and all questions about me running for governor now. Go ahead.
Plus, an investigation finds troubling business practices with Connecticut's Cannabis Social Equity Council.
I think they certainly spent money on things that were frivolous and a waste of money.
Also, the Connecticut Soda Company that's all about labels when it comes to politics. And the thing we don't often think about when it comes to showing emotions at a news conference.
I don't want to ruin my eyelashes.
Capitol Report starts now. Welcome to Capitol Report. I am Tom Dutchik. We are so glad you're spending part of this Sunday morning alongside the power panel, the great mayor of Bloomfield, Danielle Wong. Good morning. The great Joey Simwitz, football coach #1, former Speaker of the House #2. Liz Kranowitz, oh no, it's Obo.
Good morning, everyone.
See the ad constantly. And Johnny Mack is back with us.
Good morning, Tom.
All right, guys, let's get into it. It feels like New Britain Mayor Erin Stewart has been in our political lives forever. She was elected at 26, and at 6 terms in office, she announced last week she will not seek re-election in 2025. So will Erin Stewart run for governor? If I were to shake the magic 8 ball, you guys remember that. It seems all signs point to yes would pop up. Stewart says she's leaning that way, and during her news conference last week, she spent a lot of time talking about the hardware hitting New Britain's economic comeback, touching on the issues that resonate in both the city and state level: economic development, education, strong fiscal management, and legacy was also a word Stewart used repeatedly, and she had no problem sharing the news about her role in the city's turnaround. Watch this.
For the first time in 11 years, the city's closing out a fiscal year where we have made payroll seamlessly. We've made our debt payments. We're keeping our obligations to our employees and retirees. We're fully funding our pension and healthcare systems. And we're continuing to make large-scale investments in our infrastructure, schools, and people. And most importantly, we're doing that while saving so that we don't have to increase taxes and should not have to increase taxes on our people for the foreseeable future.
And as for whether Stewart plans to run for governor, she certainly seems to be leaning that way. However, Stewart would not give a definitive yes, but did say she has a lot to consider. Watch this.
I know that I've got a finite period of time to have to make that decision. We're not independently wealthy here. We run on loyalty and love. We don't necessarily run on an abundance of cash. So I would need that time to certainly raise the money, which means I would need to make a decision early on in 2025.
Well, Liz, well, deja vu all over again. It is good she's decided to run, not run for office again, because as we talked about, it's difficult to hold 2 jobs. You have one foot in both worlds.
Well, look, I think, first of all, a credit to Mayor Stewart. She has done an incredible job in the city of New Britain, and she has focused on the right things: economic development and improving the quality of life for the people in her city. And so credit to her, and that should be the focus on her legacy. In terms of the consideration for governor, obviously, she's right. I mean, fundraising is a big part of it. But, you know, there's a lot of work she can be doing now in the run-up to the 2024 election because that's where the focus of Republicans is right now. So there's a lot of opportunity to go out and knock doors, work with candidates who are on the ballot, lend your support and your voice to help cheerlead them into 2024, which certainly helps with the delegate collection in 2026.
Yeah, it always comes down to the delegates. And working hand in hand with Mayor Stewart, she really has done a fantastic job over there. She's worked hand in hand with the Democrats. She's worked hand in hand with the governor, which will make it a little unique, right? Like, they've done a lot of successful projects together. And obviously, if Ned Lamont goes in for a 3rd term, does that affect her decision-making at all?
Yeah, she's not going to run. How about that?
You know, Erin worked with me in Hartford when she was in her early 20s. Yeah. I remember when she came to talk to me about running for the Board of Ed in New Britain and then for mayor. She is one of the better, smarter politicians I've ever come across. She's way beyond her years in terms of understanding how to do this. She's obviously run the city of New Britain very well. But, you know, there's a double-edged sword when you decide not to run again. Dan Malloy made that decision. Tim Herbst made that decision. But you lose your platform to go around the state and talk about what you're doing in your current role. Now you're just a politician. And when you go to other towns and cities who may have a candidate Leora Levy from Greenwich, or you know, Heather Summers from the Stonington area, and they might say, well, we don't really, you know, aren't going to welcome you at our Republican town committee. The last point I'll make is, you know, I announced in late July of 2013 for the 2014 election. Now there's this trend of everybody running like 2 years in advance. We're seeing the rumors on the Democratic side. I think that's way too early to run. I don't think even if she wins the primary, the delegates, it means she wins the primary. We saw that with Emmis and Leora Levy. So, you know, good for her if she wants to do it. I expect her to run. Sorry to talk so long, but you know, but
You're
look,
not sorry about anything.
but for
So you can stop now.
No, but for everybody on both sides, if Governor Lamont runs, he wins.
Yeah.
All right, phew. Hey, so guess who was in the crowd for the Stewart News Conference? Republican Party Chair Ben Proto. His thoughts on Stewart as a possible candidate for governor. Now that McKinney stopped talking, watch this.
I think we would all consider her to be a fiscal conservative. I think she has the ability to express her opinions probably as well as, if not better, than a lot of people on either side of the aisle. And I think if she decides to do something in the future, regardless of what it is, she's not going to have a problem expressing those opinions and getting people to have conversations with her about those opinions.
What's up with that hair, Ben? But Danielle, you know, it's good to have Republican mayors, whether if they're female, right? Women mayors are good.
Well, yeah.
Even though they're great.
Even
if they're Republicans.
Well, look, so I think that, you know, my understanding is Mayor Stewart is not well received by progressives, and she is not well received by the far right. So she is going to have to take that same pool of voting blocks, engage and activate them the same way that if Ned does run again, they're going after that same voting block. So she has a uphill battle as it relates to that. But what I will say is, I think a mayor in the governor's office would do Connecticut well. Look, the state legislature has moved away from those really kitchen table conversations. And I think having a mayor to offer that perspective would be enticing. But do we have that outlier on either side of the table right now? I don't see that right now. We have some choices. I don't know if we have any stellar superstars.
I'm just going to push back on the comment about Erin's ability to appeal to, you know, sort of base Republicans. I reject that notion. I think authenticity and the fighting spirit is really what Republicans are looking for, and Erin has showed that over and over and over again.
All right, guys. Hey, there's been a new report that shows that there's been some reckless spending and internal dysfunction within Connecticut's Social Equity Council. The group oversees a large portion of Connecticut's legal cannabis industry. The council tasked with making sure communities most impacted by the war on drugs can reap some of the benefits of the state's legal cannabis industry. While State Controller Sean Scanlon said there's nothing, quote unquote, criminal happening, he outlined multiple examples of troubling conduct. Well, here's one now. Watch this.
What we did find, however, was questionable business practices and procedures that were troubling, subjective, and ambiguous. For example, on the licensing side, that meant unclear, contradicting, and changing guidance that was provided to applicants, poor communication to these applicants, almost all of which was verbal and never in writing, delays in the review process, and a lack of transparency in that ill-defined process.
Council's new executive director, our pal Brandon McGee, says the steps are being taken to begin a strategic planning process. But House Minority Leader Vin Candelora says this illustrates why Connecticut, as McKinney would say, shouldn't have rushed into the commercial cannabis business so fast. Watch this.
We need to do whatever we can to make sure that this organization is operating and fulfilling its duties. They're getting a lot of money. You know, they had $50 million of bonding that should be going out toward helping people create startup businesses. As far as I can tell, none of that money is going out the door. And yet I see $1 million going toward an online university to talk and educate people on marijuana. How is that helping the communities of New Haven, Hartford, Bridgeport, Hampden?
Well, Joe, your pal Sean Scanlon has been tasked by the governor to take on some important and, if not controversial, issues.
Yeah, important, controversial, and incredibly difficult. Look at some of the issues he's already tackled and worked hand in hand with the governor. The Yukon Health Center, working on that. What does it look like? What's the future going to be? Are there affiliations out there? What's the liability? That's pretty tough stuff. Also, the municipal employee pension system. came out with a whole plan on that. He really is defining himself as the problem solver in state government, which is great for him. I read through his recommendations, and I think Vinda Candelora is exactly right. It was a bill that I struggled to get passed. I couldn't get it passed. They got it passed, and it got put into place in a way to where there was a lot of language that wasn't very clear, and I think the Republicans brought that up during the floor debate. So they got to clean it up. Brandon McGee will do a great job, but my note was, Sean Scanlon really is starting to define himself as the problem solver here in the state of Connecticut, and good for him. He's very smart. I saw it firsthand when we served together on the House floor. As a freshman, he was seated right behind me. I made him a chair the very next year simply because he has those skills.
And Liz, not only in Connecticut, Massachusetts is undergoing the same thing with their social economic, their cannabis council as well.
Well, look, this all comes down to transparency and accountability. And so I think credit to Sean, obviously, for participating in this process. And I think, to your point, thank you to Vin Candelora for really keeping this fire burning as we're going through this process. And I know Brandon McGee is going to do an incredible job trying to right this ship. He will reach across the aisle and work with Vinny to make sure that those pieces that can be put in place to try and improve the system and make sure that resources are delivered where they need to go. Let's remember, this is supposed to be supporting communities who were most impacted by the war on drugs. And so we need to do everything we can to make sure that those dollars are getting where they're supposed to go.
I totally agree. And I think that this was one of the most progressive cannabis legalization bills across the nation. And one of the promises of that bill was to expunge those records, address those incarcerated for these same for the same things that we're talking about as far as legalization, and get those funds to the communities most harmed, to your point, Liz. And we're not there yet. And what we need to do is revisit that bill, button up some of that language, enhance the criteria that communities need to present in order to access those funds, and then move forward in that accountability factor.
John, wrap it up.
Well, Danielle, you're exactly right. When we talked about this, the bill never would have passed but for that, expunging the records and trying to correct some wrongs and get the money back to those communities. The most important part hasn't happened. And so, yeah, we can criticize, we can do studies. They need answers, and they need to get answers done the next session.
Up next on Cap Report, the governor, gun control, and a member of the Connecticut Sun, News 8's political contributor, our pal Mike Cerulli, connects all the dots on all three. We get back. Don't go away.
Cerulli looks sharp.
Yes, right. So are we showing some WNBA highlights on a political program? Stick with me. That's Connecticut Sun. Olivia Nelson-Ododa, the former UConn star, not just a force on the court, but off it as well. So what does it have to do with politics, you ask? For the answer to that, News 8's political contributor, our pal Mike Cerulli. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Tom. How's it going?
Hey, Mike. So tell us what's going on here.
Yeah, good morning, Tom. You know, in addition to being a rising talent on the Sun, Olivia Nelson-Ododa also finding her voice as an activist on gun control. And this comes from a very personal place for her. Olivia is from Winder, Georgia, which was recently in the news for a school shooting at Appalachia High School. 2 students and 2 teachers were killed there. Nelson-Ododa went to high school across town, and she told me this is a small town, a tight-knit community. She described the feeling of learning that news, the truly unthinkable had happened in her hometown.
One, you feel so helpless in that situation, just being so far away from, you know, my people back home. But 2, you're just wondering, okay, like, who's been affected? Has anybody died? Is anybody hurt? Like, there's 1,000 questions running through your mind. But as soon as I, was able to get my bearings after that first day, I immediately was like, I have to speak out about this. I have to say something about this and use my platform, because a lot of the people there don't have as big as a platform or a reach, and they're just left to grieve and left to heal.
Harrowing stuff, Mike. Good for her, though. You know, we heard there that Olivia felt compelled to speak out. What does that look like, Mike?
That's right, Tom. She has taken to social media, where she has more than 100,000 followers, to call for gun control. And she has found a really powerful ally in Governor Ned Lamont. He was part of that conversation I had with Olivia. They both point to Connecticut's gun laws as a model for the country. They tout the state's assault weapons ban, safe storage rules, and red flag laws. And more than just highlighting Connecticut's laws, Lamont is also applauding stars like Olivia for speaking out. Take a listen.
I love your speaking out, your fellow players speaking out. You're a role model to a lot of these young people when they say you with a strong point of view. That makes a difference going forward. You're a public figure, so people listen when you say this. You know, in the politics, sometimes they can blur us out. I think your words break through.
So, Mike, how does this all net out politically?
Yeah, I think the governor was on to something there. Remember, the Connecticut Sun really are the professional sports team for our state. And the WNBA has become such a platform for activism precisely at a time when more people are watching the league than ever before. And in an election year when black women, particularly black women from Georgia, could be the difference once again. So when it's, the W's young stars are speaking out on the issues, we shouldn't underestimate the impact of that, especially here in Connecticut.
Good stuff, Mike. Good interview. News 8's Mike Cerulli from the Mohegan Sun. That was a great report you did, Mike. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Tom. And if folks want to see more of our conversation with Olivia and the governor, they can go to WTNH.com.
Great, Mike. Thanks. Hey, up next on Cap Report, a grand opening that is going to help a lot of people get back on their feet with a connection to McKinney. We'll discuss when we get back. Don't go away. Cerulli. Love to see you. Last week marked the official grand opening of the McKinney. The former Days Inn in Hartford on Brainerd Road is now an 80-bed homeless shelter for men. But the McKinney is more than just a meal, shower, and a place to sleep. This is a place where the homeless can get back on their feet. Watch this.
The McKinney isn't just about providing a bed. It's about empowering individuals to be the best they can be by supporting them with comprehensive wraparound services. These services include on-site, and I repeat, on-site, behavioral health services, case management services, housing readiness, employment and training, GED training, and more.
What I gained here, besides those necessities that literally kept me alive, was the dignity and the restoration of hope.
John, in 1987, Stuart McKinney, along with President Reagan, a Republican, signed the Stuart McKinney Homeless Assistance Act. Not many people talk about homelessness on the Republican side of the aisle. This is a special issue to you and to your dad, because as a Republican from Fairfield County, he highlighted these issues that most people now think are blue issues, not red issues.
And they shouldn't be. They should be all of our issues, right? And, you know, credit to Commissioner Mascara-Bruno. She's doing a terrific job. The Community Renewal Team, which is offering great services. And, of course, Governor Lamont. This is a model for the rest of the country. It's kind of a one-stop shop. So they have medical services, so you can see a doctor, you can get healthy. They have classrooms where you can be taught things online. They're taught if they're missing training. There's a reason why people are homeless. Nobody chooses to do that. And whether it's economic reasons or health reasons or mental health reasons or addiction issues, the McKinney will help people solve all of those. And we know once you solve your problems and you get employment, and they're helping people get employment, you can find permanent housing. So this is the way to do it. Shelters, you need emergency shelters, but that's not the solution.
Well, and Danielle, sadly, homelessness issues is now trickling down to our youth.
It is. So the 119 commission, or over 100,000 people in Connecticut are youth and demographic, struggle with housing, struggle with finding affordable housing for themselves and their family. One of the biggest barriers, including in that driver, is transportation. So this McKinney Center is absolutely feed forward. We need more of it. This is good for the state, and we should take this model and then we should multiply it. It addresses those wraparound services. It addresses those services that are so hard to reach, because the biggest barrier is transportation. And so having that right in-house is really going to combat, and again, however we can support to continue to drive those models around the entire state is going to do best for Connecticut.
Yeah, I'll go a step further. It shouldn't just be for homelessness. You know, Chris Murphy is doing another hearing on it this morning. He has people on the phone trying to work on issues. But what about these services before they lose their housing? That's another issue. We need to be more supportive here in Connecticut. We send money into the cities and it kind of gets out, it doesn't get out, but the residents that need the services, those exact services are what they need. And John, I want to compliment your dad on pushing that issue to the forefront, but this shelter being up and running is going to be powerful. Now let's look at all the services we're offering that, and how do we get them into the communities of need?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think getting ahead of it is obviously the ideal, and we're seeing a lot more of this now in the wake of the COVID shutdown and the impact that that is going to continue to have on society and on our economy for a very long time. And so I think this is going to be something that grows in need and not diminishes. And so hopefully we can find a way to mirror what they're doing in your dad's honor and find opportunities to do that throughout the state and throughout the country.
And it's not just an urban problem.
Nope.
Correct.
You know, I was so proud that my hometown of Fairfield, Connecticut had the first suburban homeless shelter in the state of Connecticut. And the suburban communities have these issues. They need to provide the services, not continuing to push it off into the cities, which sadly some suburban towns have done.
From affordable housing to homelessness, Stewart was ahead of his time, Johnny Mac.
Yep.
Next on Cap Report, the taste test with a Connecticut flair that could end up deciding the upcoming presidential election will quench your political thirst. When we come back, do not go away. Foxton Park Soda in Staven may have cornered the market on Connecticut pizza, but Avery's beverage and hard-hitting to Britain gets the win when it comes to politics. The soda company, has done it again. They rolled out a few new labels as we head towards Election Day. The old Biden berry flavor now bears the Kamala Colada label. There's also a couple of new Trump bottles. We have the You Miss Me, which was created after the attempt on Trump's life. A little bold. And there's the Savior Pets vote. Vote Trump, plenty of his comments during the presidential debate. Guys, this election news cycle is a gift that keeps on giving this year. Hey, no one from Avery Soda sent us the soda.
I know.
Well, listen, they had to get new bottles once you guys booted Biden. They needed a new label.
Guys, send us the
Slap
soda.
a picture of Kamala on the old one. They're the same thing anyway.
Whoa, jeez.
Wow.
Good
Well,
one.
I like the description of the Trump one as being a bitter soda. I think that just fits so perfect.
They said taste of sour grapes.
Yeah, or Angry Red.
Angry Red.
Something they could have
I
done.
thought it
All
was
right, guys.
fruity.
That'll do it for Cap Report for the mayor, the coach, Lizzie, Johnny Mac. I'm done touching.
Yeah.
All right, John, let's
Protect
go.
your cats
Today's
and
the
dogs,
day.
people.
Oh!